Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's episode of Shop Talk, where we're gonna do Q&A, fun with chat. And we already have our first question, so we won't jump into it just yet. First, I must introduce my panel. My panel has shrunk, although hopefully we'll get Tom in a little bit. But with me, we have Mala. How you doing, Mala?
I am doing excellent. Thank you.
Good. I am doing reasonably well. So, average that out and it's good. All right. Speaking of Tom, should we let Tom in? I guess we probably should. Otherwise, it gets kind of boring with just me rambling and Mala occasionally interspersing.
Yeah, there he is.
Hello, Tom. We are live on the air. Welcome, caller. Tom had to peace out. It's okay. All right, so with that, we now have our panel for tonight, and once there we go. You had to.
Hey, Tom. Are you settling?
I see the little blue
All
light.
right. I had to switch to the my little dongle to the personal computer away from the work computer.
That's
You're still
okay.
moving.
That's all right. It was just funny. It's like, Tom, you're on the air, and then you start running.
We couldn't hear me though, so.
It's like you're coming out of a phone booth or something.
Oh, yeah.
No,
I'm going to go sit outside, you know.
So Tom is clearly the smartest of us. All right. I'm going to kick off with a question from chat because we've got some already. The first one comes from how best do we describe Anders? Anders. So I need to delete 871 million records in a table. Do that as one transaction?
No.
No.
No. So, all right, let me throw it out. Let me bounce it out. We all said no and laughed at it, but why not?
Will it take a very long time? Seriously, long time?
Your transaction log will be humongous.
Yes. That was the next thing, yes. Log is going to be.
So,
yeah.
It is a narrow table.
Even a narrow table is like that many rows. I would still batch it.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, what percentage of the table is it? If it's a big percentage of the table, then you probably better off exporting what you want to keep to a different table, and there are just various options.
Oh,
yeah.
Anders gets
depending on how many. That's a good point, Mala. Depending on how many rows that you're keeping.
Right.
Send them to a different table with a different name. Truncate actually just delete the table that you have and then rename it.
Right.
Will be far faster.
Right.
Or I've done the same thing, export what I want to keep and truncate the table and then bring it back in.
Yeah, with he's saying there are foreign keys on the table, so you can't really drop it. It's a live system. Because one of the other ideas is if it's all old data and it's partitioned, possibly being able to swap out partitions. Like if you're dealing with big existing system, I'd probably just have a regular batch job that deletes fairly small numbers of rows at a time off of the clustered index or a good non-clustered, and probably take it that way. And Anders being the first DBA ever, which, given the length of his beard, actually could be true.
I know that I recently, within the last 6 months, I had a table that within 2.5, 3 years, grew to like over 700 gig. And we needed to get that back down to a reasonable size. And I basically created a job, found my sweet spot. And I actually just created a job that would fire off every few minutes and basically delete the table and do a checkpoint. I can't remember whether that database was on a full recovery model or not, but you got to think about that when you're deleting that many rows and stuff. But it took me like 35 days to trim the table down. So
yeah, this is a long-term project. This is not like I'm gonna go get coffee and it'll be done.
No,
he's trying for 20-second transactions, which makes sense. You run it for a hot minute and then you let it sit.
Right.
1 second wait in between. Yeah, I could see doing that where you just delete 10,000 at a time until the you get to the point like, okay, stop, and
I think
let it rest.
Yeah, I
saw
exactly
that
what
implementation where I work. I haven't seen it anywhere else. The whole timer thing. Keep on deleting until the timer maxes out and then stop. So I've never seen that anywhere else. I've only seen batch sizes, but that's very smart.
Well, databases are like bread, so you've got to work it for a little bit, and then you let it rest and let the glutens work out, and then you work it again.
Does it have a date on it to where he could possibly just partition it out?
That's a good question. Partitioning. So if you are just deleting older data and you've partitioned by date, too much downtime to partition it. Yeah. So it wasn't partitioned before. However, if it was, you end up with another option where if I'm just archiving off as a regular process, like in a data warehouse, I've got 5 years of data and I'm going to every month bring in the new month, turn off the old month, then you'd be able to use partition switching and swap that out and take advantage of the fact that that's just a metadata operation. So that's very fast. But
we had a data partitioning that we set up back in 2000, and it was a credit card transactional system. And basically, most of the time, people were needing to allocate to their cost center the credit card transactions they were doing. And we turned around and we actually partitioned that one table by day because it was the hottest table there. And then overnight, we would move that data into a monthly table. And then we would just basically, what we basically did was did like a Prev 1, Prev 2, Prev 3 type of thing. We didn't really give the table a name. We gave the views a name on top of it, but not the tables. So that once we got to like 18 or 19, we could just go, okay, change, rename all the tables from Prev 1 to Prev 19 to the next number, then roll it off and start up a new Prev 1, which was the current month. And it was really fast because we physically were not really moving any data at all, except for that one daily transaction that we were moving. All the rest of it was just rename tables, and literally it would set up a new partition in minutes. So before table partitioning officially came out in 2005.
Right.
So,
yeah. Oh, that SQL 2000 style partitioning is still, it's still viable. Just slap a view on top of it, put a bunch of constraints on the view.
Oh, very much so. Sometimes even a better option than actually using the technical partitioning.
Table function.
Yeah.
The built-in SQL Server partitioning. Because
right.
I had all the flexibility in the world doing that, because I had one partition was 1 day, and then the next partition technically was a full month. And
the only hassle I recall, and I think my experience doing this was probably 2008, was that there was a limit on how many tables you can union into a view. So I think we ran into some kind of, I don't even remember what that is. It was quite a significant number of tables, but It maxed out on something like that, if I remember.
Yeah, it's interesting on
Uh-huh.
ours that we worked with, because it was credit card transactions and stuff. Nobody really, even though we kept them 18 months, nobody really cared except for the first 90 days. The rest of them, I really don't care. They don't go back and look at them unless, an emergency or something. So,
Yeah. Okay, so
but what about another idea? If he's got a date on it, what about stretch it out into, put the cold data out into Azure?
Stretch.
I'll take Kevin's
Are you laughing at
as
that
a
one,
as a
Kevin?
remark.
I've heard it's very expensive. I thought about using it myself, but I had a premier guy talk me out of it as SQL Server. He said it's extremely expensive. I'm not going. That should be really a cheap option, and Microsoft would make so much money doing it.
So the way that I would explain it is you can buy, for the price of stretch, a new NVMe based SAN pretty much every year, a brand new one, just drop it in, and probably still save money on stretch.
Stretch is stretch that much? I've never really found out.
Enormously expensive. Basically, you are getting like Azure SQL Data Warehouse or Azure Synapse Analytics level pricing for data that you don't care about. It's ridiculously expensive.
If Microsoft would make that dirt cheap, everybody would do it.
Yes.
So
compared
Kevin,
to Rackspace, it may still be cheap.
The cost is, suppose I have some data that I really don't care about, like you said, I just want it archived and, occasionally query it. I shut down the server on the Azure side. Would they still charge me money for it? Like a lot of money? For just keeping it there?
So you don't technically have access to the server on the Azure side. It's just there as part of Stretch. So yeah, they'd still be charging you even if you're not using the database or if you're not using that part of the table. Yeah, what I highly suggest is if you're going to go down that route, actually check out Polybase, where if it's data that you almost never need and you want a cold storage style fix, you can put it into Azure Blob Storage, pull that down when you need it. The downside being that you're going to pull the entire file or set of files, so you're going to get a lot of data back. If you have a huge amount of data, then you'll want to use something that is a Cloudera or Hortonworks cluster and hit against HDFS. But for this type of solution, like Polybase is enormously cheaper than Stretch, and also means that one additional person will use Polybase, which once that number gets into double digits, you're good.
Yeah, I know that like in my business, there are people because of court cases and stuff that they'll come back and say, hey, we need the data from 3 years ago on this employee, what training he took or whatever the case may be. So it's not data that we access every day, but it's data that we do access. And it's almost, if you got companies like that, like our databases, I've been there 7 years and they were living, some of those databases were living before I got there. And basically they've never been archived ever. We've got data all the way. I know one database I queried, and I think we got data back to 2006. And it's just a matter of nothing was ever built into the system to allow you to archive. So one of the things that I could recommend to people is we just put in a new system that I had to fight my enterprise architect for. Is I said, I want a field in there called delete date. and I want that, I want that field to be populated, that when you mark a record as delete, please put it there so that eventually I could either create my own partitioning or use, SQL Server partitioning to move that data off. But yeah, I've got, and I know there's a lot of that out there. That who archives? Kevin, do you archive? You guys archive at work, or you just kind of sit on it?
Oh, we archive, we delete, we burn things down.
We do, Tom. That's why I told you I saw the timer implementation here. I haven't seen that anywhere.
So, quick note on Stretch, since
so it archives, based on those we get, keeps pushing stuff out. There should be more of it, but there is some of it. That much I'll say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quick note on Stretch, since Mike asked, is that a Microsoft guarantee not to run out of space? The answer is no, because StretchDB is also limited in the maximum size of the table. So they won't accept more than a certain amount of data. And it was some number of, I want to say some number of terabytes. I don't remember off the top of my head. But they do cap that at the high end as well. So you can't have effectively infinite storage. But don't worry, you'll run out of money long before you hit those storage limits.
Unless you work for your guys as employers, got deep pockets, and then you don't worry about it.
So Solomon says manual stretch, which is very similar to what I was saying with Polybase, but manual stretch is you have cheap storage. You have like a spinning disk SAN or some other device someplace. Archive table of the same schema, use some job or .NET code or SQL script or whatever to move that data over, and then you can query from the archive server as well as from the local server, union them together with a partition view, union all, and see both sets of data if you need it. So yeah, that's a way to do it within SQL Server.
Well, another question would be is a discussion to have. What's your methodology on archiving? Is your methodology on archiving moving your data to cold storage so you can access it, or is your methodology that you've got backups sitting there that you can restore, that you've kept 7 years or whatever of backups, and do like a yearly backup or whatever, and you can restore it to go get the data you need, and you just flat out delete the data? Yeah, I've come under, as I get older, I've come more underneath just keep those yearly backups, monthly backups to a yearly backup. And then once you hit that backup, then
I think that's partly a business driven decision too, Tom. Business and audit driven decision on what you can keep online and what you can safely put into a backup.
Yeah, you just got to make sure that you can restore those backups, of course. So
that too, yeah.
I'm looking to see if I can find the maximum size of Stretch database, but I can't find it right off the top of my head. It's a pretty big number. It's not infinite, but it is a pretty big number. Of course, one of the downsides of Stretch is that if you actually do use it, then if you ever make a change to the database schema, the schema for that table, you have to bring all the data back down locally. And then you make the change, and then it pushes the data back out to Azure. So,
do you know anybody yet that's using StretchDB?
Nope, because the pricing for it is just to get the compute. The minimum level of compute that you probably want is about 10 grand a month. So you're paying 10 grand a month just for having the capacity to store data there. And again, you can start buying some very expensive amounts of very fast disk or ridiculous amounts of spinning disk for that price.
Oh, yeah.
So is there any kind of anybody MVPs or anybody pushing for making that a little affordable? Because it's a good concept, really good concept.
There are people who have liked stretch, but as it is today,
No.
The limitations are all in the price. If it was a 10th or a 100th of the price, yeah, absolutely, I'd use it. The fact that it is the price that it is, you're telling me I've got to spend 10 grand just to hold data I don't really want very often. So I'm paying a premium price for the least premium data.
Yeah, I know that when the concept first come out, man, I was like going, yeah, because I've got these databases, like I said, with years and years and years of data on it, that I could very easily start with some of my training data table and say, okay, go send that data to Stretch. I don't care about that training. It's 5 years old or 10 years old or whatever. So maybe this will get back to Microsoft and they'll price it, better so people will use it.
And we'll see.
Great concept. Yeah.
Okay, so I do want to hit some of these other questions. Mike is talking about magnetic storage, and the tricky part about magnetic is that it is so incredibly slow. For backups, hey, drop backup tapes, that's still fine. Even spinning disk is still really slow. So again, it works for these scenarios. This is the type of scenario where spinning disk or for tape, it works really well. I don't need the data in a fast manner. It can wait several days for a query to run. But that's not a typical scenario, I would say, where I can afford to have a query run for several days. And I think that's where a lot of the bias against spinning disk and against other, say, earlier methods of data storage come into play. Now, Mike also had the question of, at what point would you not use a database server and just start a new database with big updates and deletes? Following up from Andrew's question. So at what point do you just give up on the existing table and create a new one? If you have an enormous percentage of deleting, like, where is that threshold for each of you?
Well, like I was talking about earlier, when we created our own table partitioning, one of the reasons we were doing that is that our nightly process was taking longer and longer and longer because the one transaction table that held all that data was literally, getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was just taking longer and longer to do it. So the way we handled that was, when we created all these tables underneath, is the main table that was there, we now made it a view. We actually had a view called TV underscore transaction, and you're like going, that violates the naming convention or whatever, which it did. It totally violated the view naming convention. And I had to train people and say, okay, when you look at TV transaction, it's actually a view. It's not really the table. And that's way back, before, we should have probably named it TV or whatever, but that's, like I said, it's 2000. So that's one way to actually even possibly start a new table, is possibly put the original table, put it into view, and then create a new table that you're putting data into, and you're kind of archiving the old one off. So I even hate that when someone even does a delete on my table, a hard delete, because I know even one hard deletes are expensive, because it's got to go update all the indexes and everything else that goes along with it. So a lot of times we'll do soft deletes on everything, and the only time we'll do a hard delete is with like a SQL, like a job or something, to go do it in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I think it depends on a lot of different things. And the priorities for each business is different. Some places um, struggle with storage. Some places have less of a challenge there. Also, the demand and the stress you have on your database, how much, like what Anders was asking, how much time you have to do a delete of a large magnitude. So there are many things that go into it, and I think you have to make the decision based on what is important in your environment and work it based on that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Mike was tossing some shade my way about my desire to avoid spinning disk, which is a desire. I will readily lay that out.
Mm-hmm.
Making the argument that look, there are good reasons to have spinning disk, and I do agree. I do agree. But one of the easiest ways to get better performance in a database that needs it is making that disk faster. Give me more RAM, make my disk faster. Then we can start talking about optimization. We can start talking about a lot of the niceties of, the difference between an adequate DBA and a good one. But if it's just basically here, pay $1,000 for faster disk, I'd definitely go that route. It's just an easy way to get an enormous performance gain, and it is absolutely enormous. The difference between something like at the high end where you're talking direct attached NVMe or even a pure array or all flash arrays that are still network linked versus spinning disks, even a set of spinning disks. It's night and day difference performance wise, and if that's what you need, if you need things to be faster, that's a moderately expensive to pretty expensive way of getting that to be faster, but still cheaper than paying really good database developers and database administrators to micro optimize on slow hardware. So that's my trade-off. I mean, it's a fair point that spinning disk is around for a reason. It's still there for a reason, and I certainly won't deny its value. But if I had to draw a line in the sand, like, no, I want my SQL servers running on at least SSD. Ideally, I want direct attached NVMe, but that's because I don't have to administer it.
Well, it's interesting that normally your biggest pain point in most databases is your I/O, is your disk. If you don't have enough memory, but I/O is probably the biggest pain point. Even when you're doing an encryption, like I do a lot of encryption, encryption uses a lot of CPU, but it's still not my big pain point. My big pain point is always normally I/O.
Yeah, it does seem that way quite often. So Mike also asked, do databases have concepts of multi-level cache for tables? And the answer is kinda, sorta. So you have all of the data stored on disk, and it's going to be brought into, at least in SQL Server, it's going to be brought into the buffer pool as it's read, so it's held in memory. That is caching already.
Right.
From there, you don't really get a second level of caching so much. You have architectural concepts that may help you out, like using memory optimized tables, but those really don't make reads that much faster. So you have, I suppose you could say, one level of caching. Right. And the question of why don't we have multi-level caching, to the extent that we do, it'll be things like in cube products, like analysis services, and that's where you'll have aggregations and generated aggregates off of your facts that act as levels of caching, because they're essentially going to be pre-computed aggregations of slices of your data. We don't get that on the
Wow, why do you call that caching, Kevin? Does it sit in memory? Like you're saying, when the cube is used, it goes in memory, so it's a second level of caching.
So it's held in memory. It's also actually written to disk
Yeah.
so that as you process a cube, they are all of these different aggregations are generated, and your
Right.
queries can pick up on the different slices of data. This is
Right.
especially true in the MDX days, so the analysis services that very few people care about.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but it's still out there. So I
Well,
suppose
well,
the go ahead.
that's what made it so fast, though, is pre-allocating all the data and not having to crunch through it all and stuff and actually store it on disk. That's what made analysis services such a hot product, is because
Mm-hmm.
you really kind of analysis services, you flatten the data to where that when you're reporting on it, you barely have to put a where clause on it. You do, but you try to make it as flat as you can so that you're not going after extraneous data and having to chew up. That buffer pool is what you're talking about, Kevin. That's where you want to make sure that you have plenty of RAM, so that you can keep that stuff in the buffer pool as long as possible.
Right. And the other point that I did want to hit around this was that you can kind of fake what I'm talking about here in a regular database engine by having multiple tables. So you can create aggregations at different levels of especially fact data and
Mm-hmm.
then know which table to hit in your queries. So if I need to get this uh, bottom level of the rung because I need to get the flattest amount of data possible, then I'll go hit the wide table that has the most rows, but I might be able to hit successively higher levels of aggregation, which will have fewer and fewer rows. So queries
Mm-hmm.
get faster that way. It's not
Mm-hmm.
it's still not multi-level caching as such because everything's still sitting in the same buffer pool. It's about as close as we're going to get, at least in the SQL Server world. There might be some product somewhere that has like L1, L2, L3 style of caching for your database, but I would think that's very unlikely because at the end of the day, you just have memory. We don't tend to have different tiers of memory
Right.
like we have tiers of CPU processing capability
Mm-hmm.
or CPU
Well, well,
cache.
the the other part of it is you can use third-party products to cache, also Redis or something like that,
True.
for data that doesn't change real frequently on you. If it's changing frequently, you definitely don't want to put it into Redis or something like that.
Right.
Like
And
if you've
so,
got like if you've got the name of a company and their address and whatever, it's not like you need to query that. You could probably leave that up in Redis or something for days, and that probably doesn't change that frequently.
yep. Yeah. So for the overall architecture of an application, Tom's absolutely right. At that point, your multi level caching is you can store it in your source system, which is probably a relational database. It's on disk storage there, eventually makes it up into the buffer pool, pull it into Redis, pull it into Cosmos DB or into Mongo or into some other system that may act as an intermediary,
Right.
possibly have other tools around as well to give you even more. Like you can have in process caching in .NET, where that's really fast because it's on the server itself. You're not even talking to a remote Redis server, but you're going to be limited to however much RAM you can fit on that web server or that application server. So at
Hmm.
that point, the multi level caching becomes at your application ecosystem level instead of within the database product.
Right.
So, had a couple of questions from John Fan that I wanted to hit here. First one, what kind of tools do you think are good for recording a video for a presentation? Like if I'm doing an online demo or if I'm just recording PowerPoint or whatever.
Huh. Well, Skype has a free recording thing now, cheap and free, and it's not terribly shabby to use. I've used it a few times. Um, I don't know too much about
I
the paid
don't.
tools, unfortunately, but that one.
Yeah, I really don't use.
The only disadvantage I had with the Skype recording is that it's only MP4. If you want a soundtrack only with no picture, it cannot do that.
Okay.
So otherwise, it's pretty decent for a free tool.
How about you, Tom?
I really wouldn't know because I really don't go out there and record myself. I do, of course, being the virtualization virtual leader, I do go record Kevin and other people that come on, but we're using GoToWebinar to do that, to do that type of recording. But I'm not creating YouTube videos or anything like that to leave around in my legacy today. So
Okay, so I'll give my answer. There are a few tools that I use. One of them that I've used pretty heavily is Camtasia. Camtasia is a commercial product and is really good for capturing your screen plus audio plus webcam, and works pretty well. It's great for the type of technical presentation that I would give as a webinar. It is offline, so I would build it out on my computer. The workflow is pretty simple. There's some video editing, there's some audio editing. So, yeah, John asked if I could spell it. Camtasia, Camtasia. The other tool, actually the one that we're using right now to broadcast this, is Open Broadcast Studio, or OBS Studio. That is open source product. It is heavily used for streaming, but you can absolutely record with this. One of the downsides is you're not going to do much in the way of post-processing, which means that once it's recorded, it's going to be saved as an MP4 file, like what Mala said, and you're going to have the video. Typically, if I were using OBS Studio for this, I would probably drop it into Camtasia afterward. I know other people use the Adobe Suite. There is a product for videography in there. I am too cheap to pay for the Adobe Suite. I'll just lay that out. This is coming out of my pocket, so it's something I'm very concerned about is cost here. But yeah, Camtasia, in fairness, I do get a free copy of Camtasia because I'm a data platform MVP. So I should probably say that, like, hey, I got the copy for free. So nonetheless, I do think it's a good product. There are some open source video editing products that I have seen. I'm blanking on any off the top of my head, but I would check out that and see. Yeah, like if Camtasia, if you can't get what you need in a demo of it, and you don't want to buy it, you can't afford it for whatever reason, there are a few other products at like different tiers of video quality. Even within Windows, there was a video editor. Yeah, there is a video editor on Windows 10, and I might have used that once or twice for some very small stuff, but I don't have enough experience with it to tell you it's any good. It might be, who knows. But that goes back to the old days of like Windows XP and the Windows Movie Maker. So there are free tools around, especially if you're just getting started and you want to do a recording and you want to hear yourself afterwards. Which, by the way, is a really good way to get better at presenting, because you will hear all of the repetitive statements, the uhs, ums, ahs, ers, strange voices, strange noises you make, and give you an idea of where you can improve. I tend to ignore all of those things, so I just keep plodding along. But if you want to get better, that's a good way to do it. So that would be my recommendation. If you wanted to record video, one of those tools, if you're looking at the kind of professional route, you want to talk Skype, absolutely. The service we're using actually to chat is called Whereby. It's a free website, whereby.com, and allows you to create a room. Well, that's just another chat service where I can share my screen. I could go full screen and present. And then I can also, in the little drop down bar here, I can record the meeting. So we could record it and save it later. So again, if you're just doing this gonzo and you don't need any kind of editing afterward, that's another option for you. If you want to do editing afterward, you might be able to pull it into Video Editor. You may do some research on open source products or drop some cash on a commercial product.
So to people, if you happen to be on Twitter, you can probably shoot a question to Doug Lane or Eric Darling. Both of those people are heavily into recording videos, and they will have a ton of suggestions for you. Doug Lane, his Twitter handle is the Doug Lane, and Eric Darling, I suppose everybody knows him, and Brent Ozar, it goes without saying, he needs no introduction. So if you want, you can ask these people on what they use, and I'm sure you'll get good answers there.
Yeah, there's also a whole YouTube subgenre on video editing. Like, I haven't even gotten into audio editing, which I'm really bad at, by the way. In case you haven't heard any of my video recordings, I'm really bad at it. But I've spent dozens of hours, so I've gotten from really bad to just bad. I'm getting better. Oh no, John Fan was... my bot has been very active in banning people. I'm sorry about that, folks. None of it's personal. The bot just hates you. So, John Fan, I'm sorry I lost your other two questions, if you happen to still have them. Mike C mentions that frame.io and Loom are also good for videos. So there are plenty of tools that are out there. If you're interested in getting started with videos, then yeah, there are good ways to get in there. Doesn't matter what platform you're on, there's going to be some tooling that'll work for you, and it'll just get you a video. I guess part of it depends on what's your intent with the video. If it's to share something with people at work, then yeah, use whatever recording software you can, because if you have problems, it's not professional. Like this show, not professional.
I love that.
Okay, so unfortunately, I lost John Fan's other two questions because the bot that I have has been going crazy on people tonight. I mean, when it was just Anders, it was funny, but now it hit second person. So, John Fan, if you're able to put those questions back in chat, I'll be happy to try to answer them. So, because I lost those questions, I'm doing a quick check to see if we have any others. But while I'm doing that, what are you guys working on? Anything interesting that you can share? Mala, you went to some training.
Right, I am doing the training that Andy Leonard has going on SSIS data transforms. I haven't worked seriously with any ETL before. Most of it has been T-SQL based, and I really don't know. I had to do a project at work migrating some Postgres data into SQL Server, and I started to understand how limited my abilities are there. So when Andy put out a course, a somewhat discounted course on it, I asked my boss and got approval to go, and I'm really enjoying it. It's just a 2-day course, and today was day 1. So I'm really enjoying it. I'm really learning a lot that I didn't know very well before, and he's giving us plenty of exercises to do as well. So that's how my week has started.
Yeah, and if you want to learn integration services, Andy's one of the 3 or 4 best people in the world for that kind of thing. He is an excellent teacher,
Right.
and has done an amazing job in the ETL space.
Right. And tomorrow he's also going to teach us some BIML, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, yeah. Bimmel's a thing. I wouldn't say I've soured on it. I still like it for what it is. It
Mm.
feels like it could have been a bit more. Um, but as I use
I'm not
integrations,
sure it's useful in every environment, but I think it has shops where you have the same kind of ETL you need to do on multiple, hundreds of other servers and such. I think it would be useful.
oh yeah, absolutely, yes. If you're
Yeah.
using integration services heavily, then
Yeah.
Bimble is absolutely your friend. You definitely want to learn it.
Right.
It's just that I've used integration services less and less over the past several years. So
Uh-huh. Why would you say that? Is because you found a better ETL, or is it Polybase?
no, well, Polybase can do a little bit of the ETL work, but I haven't.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I wouldn't say that. I mean, there are things like Azure Data Factory 2.0 now being usable.
Mm-hmm.
1.0 was, in my opinion, not usable.
Mm-hmm.
2.0 is certainly usable. I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of it is I've shifted to using application code for TL quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's probably why I haven't used much of integration services. In places where I don't have to worry
Huh.
about hitting a huge number of sources, then integration services is pretty solid. And I've built out solutions
Mm-hmm.
with Bemel that are pretty easy to maintain, or at least I think they're easy to
Mm-hmm.
maintain.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but but yeah, I just haven't had that much of a need for non-app ETL.
Mm.
Yeah, most of our ETL too, we've moved away from SSIS and gone to third-party products. And it's kind of like you were saying, Kevin, it's just a matter of I know there's stuff like CData and others, uh, to turn around and actually give you connectors to connect to it. But when you just need, we've created what we call a enterprise service bus that we've got the source of data and then it pushes it to a bunch of other systems and stuff. And some of them are in SQL, some of them are in a finance system. So depending upon what you're needing to do and what type of tracking and audit trail and that type of stuff, and you know, depends upon which tool and whether you go with more of a commercial grade than just SSIS. So,
Okay. Anything interesting you want to report on, Tom?
well, you know what I always work on? Encryption. So, I've been working on some encryption, working on some more presentations. Just did one last week for PASS on the security presentation. So working on a course that if it gets approved, I'll announce more on it and stuff. But it'd be a 3-hour course with hands-on lab and all kinds of examples and stuff. And TJ Belt will really love it because we'll get into quite in depth of how to work with uh, always encrypted and the gotchas and then of course I'm gonna get into more of I'm gonna start looking at my computer and see if I can actually hook up an enclave, in 2019, which is going to be quite a challenge, because enclave has many parts that have to be created to allow you to do that. But I'd really like to start seeing what an enclave, uh, how many limitations it's going to uh, release with always encrypted. Always encrypted just has a ton of basically limitations that you can't do. It's like one of the things is we have because of this enterprise service bus, we have a queue that basically if it doesn't process, it puts the data in there and it could end up with PII data. So they ended up encrypting it, but they put the data into a JSON file And now I have someone going, I want to query for this JSON type and find everything in that encrypted field with JSON. And it's like, sorry, it's encrypted. You can't do that. So anyway, so yeah, it's, you got to know what you're doing when you're in, and what your capabilities are when you're working with always encrypted. Great product, but a lot of limitations.
Mm.
Yeah, Anders mentions that all data will have a report request against it. Somebody's going to want it at some point.
Yeah, true. But or product's going to say I need to use it, and you're going to let go. Sorry, can't use it. It's randomized encryption. So you know. So anyway,
Use the app. So we do have a question from John Pham. It is a lengthy one. I need to prepare for this one. Do some vocal exercises. We're developing a new application that uses a stored procedure. The stored procedure inserts thousands of rows as a single batch into an employee table. There's a person who's saying the application response time has gotten worse since the stored procedure was updated. And it looks like there's a disk performance problem around write log. So they want to make the application response time better. Maybe it's not even, it looks like the employee table may not even be indexed. Yeah, this does look like a test question. We'll still give it a go. That's okay. I mean, my real life answer is, well, what's your disk storage? You know, going back to my thing before.
right.
Can I slap in an SSD and make that thing fast enough? If so, that's a few $100s. It takes a few $100s for me to give you an answer. Like if you look at the price of a DBA, they get expensive fast. So if you're working on this for 10 hours and you could have solved the problem with hardware purchase, a loss of money. Now it's CapEx versus OpEx, and people don't understand sunk costs. But you know, if you're thinking about it in that regard, yeah, look at your hardware for real.
Well, my question would be is, are they doing batch processing, like row by row by row, as it's coming in from several different sources, or is it set based that they're throwing all the data in?
That's always a good question. And if it's inserting, not updating. So if we take the question literally, insert thousands of records, then I suppose if you're inserting into a heap, why is it batch inserting into an employee table? Well, if you want to insert, let's say you bought a company and you're buying a lot of companies very quickly and you're inserting a bunch of employees every time. I don't but that is unless Target bought up Walmart. Yeah. So maybe if you switch the name of employee to something else, then that gets passed. But you know, ignoring the semantics of the table, like what the table does itself, and you're just thinking about, I have a process that's trying to do large insertions, inserting a lot of rows. The options here: update the application to use implicit transactions. That's my official answer.
So like what Tom said, if a batch insert is at all possible, we could do like, pass a TVP to a stored procedure and stick it with data and do an insert from that. That is one option instead of making multiple calls to the database.
Yeah, that's assuming that you're inserting, you're making the call one row at a time. And this is saying the stored procedure inserts thousands as a single batch. So maybe you give it.
Are you getting data from different data sources? And if you are, can you like put in front of the main employee table, can you put in like a staging table that you basically round robin and basically put in 100,000 rows in this staging table or whatever, go to another one, and while you're inserting that in, you're bringing that data into another table. So sometimes you have to kind of think of what can you do, and can you possibly even, if with those staging tables, can you even possibly do it, bring them all together at nighttime or whatever. So you have to sometimes think of, okay, I can't do this with a single table. Maybe I need to do something, get creative.
Yeah, and the next part of it, actually, Solomon's already given his response, and my response is about the same. Replace the stored procedure with a user-defined function, and that's a hard pass. It doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
Adding a unique clustered index to the employee table. Yeah, if there's no index, no clustered index, if you're inserting directly into a heap, the funny thing is, inserting into a heap is quite often faster than inserting into a table with a clustered index, especially if you have to worry about the hot page issue, where if I'm inserting I'm hitting those pages. Now, this is a problem typically for concurrency, but if I'm just doing broad inserts, heaps are actually really good for this. You're gonna get your awful performance when you're querying them for select, and the application is slower not because of the process to insert data, but in the fact that you have a lot more data in there, and heaps get a lot slower because effectively you're scanning the heap every time. So, adding a unique clustered index could solve that particular problem, because the problem isn't in the insertion in that case.
Remember Thomas, one of the things Thomas did to get around the hot page, you remember that, moving it from 2 milliseconds down to 1 millisecond presentation he did for the advanced group? He actually went in and ended up changing some data types, and did like a unique GUID, basically, to insert data and stuff to get faster speeds and stuff. It's
right. I believe it was a big int that was broken out in such a way that it would be guaranteed to radically differ every time.
right.
So yeah.
So he,
Thomas,
I would definitely go research, and because his presentation has been many different places. I think even at past summits and stuff like that, you could get his presentation of going from 2 seconds to 1 millisecond.
Thomas
it's very enlightening.
Thomas Grosser.
Grosser.
Okay.
Yeah,
the only guy that would do this type of stuff.
Yes. Yeah. Now, that solution, by the way, that's the type of solution where it's like, I have 10 billion rows in this table, and I'm inserting another 10 billion rows every day, and I need this to be as fast as possible.
Yeah.
This is not, I have 100,000 rows, and I'm adding another 100. So that's right at the ludicrous levels that TG usually operates. So Mike C asks,
exactly.
Yeah, Mike C asks, well, if refactoring the stored procedure is an option, would a merge statement have less cost than an insert? The short answer to that is no. The long answer to that is no.
No.
Look, I have a whole rant on merge. My problem with merge is it's a really awesome idea, and I love the concept. I like the upsert in Oracle. Merge has so many bugs, so many performance problems, so many issues with it, that I cannot in good conscience ever recommend anybody write a query using merge. And frankly, given that these bugs have been in there for 12 years, I'm going to lay it out and say they're probably not getting fixed anytime soon. We've had, a half dozen different versions of SQL Server since merge came out, and there are still known bugs that just won't be fixed.
I agree. Merge is not something I would use.
Yeah, I mean it's
A nasty gift that goes on giving.
Yeah.
What I
It's a
think
really
about
cool idea. I love the concept. I like the idea that instead of having separate insert, update, deletes, you
What-
have one operation. And like in a hypothetical ideal world, it would be at least as fast as the 3 different operations because you scan through the data once. In reality, you're still scanning through the data at least as many times as you have separate options, and you're probably doing it more than that.
Yeah. Well, it's like we were talking earlier. Merge is a great concept, and so is Stretch DB, but they just fail.
Yeah, for different reasons. Very different
Yeah.
reasons.
Mm.
So, all right, that hits. Actually, we hit pretty much nothing on our docket, which is excellent because that means we had a lot of great questions in chat, and we were able to filibuster around all of the really bad questions in chat. Yeah, Anders, your reasoning is correct. I'm not going to say it on the recording, but you're absolutely right. So, with that, I'm going to wrap it up for tonight. Thanks, everybody, for attending, or if you're watching this after the fact, thanks for making it through all the way here, including the dogs. We actually have to pay the dogs. It's part of union rules around productions, but they're paid in kibble, so it's not too bad on our budget. So next episode, same time, same channel. Stop on by next Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And with that, everybody, have a great evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.